Let's go to Troy Blackwell. Let's talk remote service. Executive VP, Automotive Business Development, Spiffy. Troy, welcome.
Hey guys, thanks for
Hey,
having me. Been watching the show for a long time, so great to be here.
it's fun to have you on the show. You and I met out at Reynolds in Dallas at a very cool contest where Reynolds brought a bunch of people together and they wanted to get the best practice out there. And it was fun getting a chance to meet you and learn a little bit more about your business and what you're doing. How is biz? And as part of that, just tell us a little bit about yourself,
Yeah,
Troy.
no, business has been great. It's great timing, just on the heels of your previous conversation around fixed. So Spiffy, we've been doing mobile service for about 11 years, and we've done over 3.5 million services. So really think of us as a mobile technology platform for automotive industry, and we're taking this knowledge and we're transferring it into the dealerships and saying we built in-house software, we build vans internally, so we've learned a lot and kind of learned from some of our early mistakes. And what can we do to help accelerate you guys, dealerships, into the mobile business?
So, and it's an interesting point. When you talk about seeing an increase in fixed ops for an acquiring dealer, like we just heard about, remote service is definitely one area. So you build what? Let's start with that. What are some of the biggest lessons you learned early on that you've corrected that maybe other dealers could learn from as it relates to remote service this September 2025?
Well, Sam, you'd be surprised when we do go and talk to dealerships what they're doing to try to make mobile work. And when I say that, even using Excel spreadsheets to manage routes,
Mm,
those were things we did very early on, and we've since improved with this software. So that's one right away, because they schedule like the cable company. Remember when they said it will be there
yeah,
between
yeah.
8 and noon?
Noon and 10.
And
Yeah.
noon
And then
and
they don't
5,
show up.
and then they
Yeah.
always show up at that last hour. I want to be the guy where they get there at the first part, right? So
Yeah.
that's where we really focused on to really optimize the scheduling and the routes from an efficiency standpoint. We've got some great partners like Bozard Ford, which I know Ed Roberts has been on the show many
Mhm. Yeah.
times. And
Yeah.
even in their environment, they're one of the leaders of mobile. When we got there, they were at 20 mobile vans, and today they're around 46. So they
Wow.
certainly have grown. And by implementing the software, certainly tightened up to get as many as 4 to 5 ROs a day in that mobile space. So we're excited. Those are some early learnings that we've had.
All right, Troy, I'll bite on the cable scheduling because nothing
Okay.
drives me more nuts than a company that says I'll be there between 10 and 3 and they don't even show up for the 10 and 3. And you see that a lot cable, HVAC, like any of those home service companies. How
Mhm.
have you been able to go from that spreadsheet to being able to predict when that technician is able to arrive at a home? How does the software work that it's able to predict more accurately? And how tight is the window you give consumers when you show up at their house?
Okay, I know my engineers are probably listening, so they're going to be the best ones to kind of really walk through the nuts and
Fair.
bolts.
Yeah,
But
yeah, fair.
from my side, it's really building in and understanding traffic patterns at the very beginning. So you know that that van needs to leave from one point to another, right? So we have things built within, so we know traffic patterns and how long it's going to take to get to the job. And then we have op codes, and we understand how long it's going to take to do a particular job. Now we build in buffers and we work with our dealer partners to add those buffers in. So think of it too, if they actually go to a fleet environment, you may get to do a fleet and someone has the keys and they're locking 3 cars ahead of you. So
Mm.
those are little nuances that happen, but our technology puts things in place. Now, when you're managing one van, it's actually easier to manage when you have multiple, because then you can pull vans and resources and apply them into the jobs. But that's from the simplest way to kind of relate it to your audience of what our technology can do.
So you've had some to do with Ford dealers. Ford grew from 20,000 to 360,000 mobile pickup experiences in just 2.5 years. What are a couple of the takeaways from that growth and that experience that have moved the needle in
Yeah,
remote
yeah, no,
trucking?
I think Ford, as we all know, Ford is probably the most aggressive with mobile service. They were the early ones out of the gate. put a lot of programs in place for the dealerships to have a van and even a Ford Escape to go out and do things like recalls. But I think the learnings from that, 2.5, 3 years ago, they were looking at 20,000 customer experiences a month. And that was half mobile and then half pickup and delivery. Fast forward to today, 360,000. So,
Wow.
and that's collectively, right? But what that tells you is there's certainly a customer appetite, right? There's a customer
Yeah.
saying, hey, as much as you want us to probably come to the dealership from a convenience side, we'd love for you to come to us or come to our home. And then, not to mention, there's a recall aspect baked in here as well. And whether you're going to your customers or other dealerships to fulfill those recalls, that's also something that we've seen.
What are you seeing on the CSI side when you talk about consumer appetite from that 20,000 to 360 in Ford's case? Like, what's the impact to CSI with remote service?
Yeah, that's one of the first things I talk about when I sit down with a dealer or principal or GM is the lift in CSI, and it's about 12-point pickup in CSI. So any of those bad ones that you may get on the service drive are going to be offset out in the field. There's great partners out there. I think of Jim Sabino at All American Ford, who post his Google reviews daily, and so it's pretty fascinating to see the customers' feedback and their desire looking for mobile service.
So, if you're a dealer watching the show today and you're like, all right, I get it, remote service makes sense, but you've just never done it. I think a lot of dealers have been pulled into it through Ford because their program made so much sense financially. Like, you almost had to do it. You were giving up free money to not get into it.
Yeah.
But let's say there's a dealer out there, single point or maybe a few stores, they just haven't done anything with it. What are a few first steps a dealer could take to get into this business and help understand and realize the benefit or the impact of remote service?
Well, we like to sit down with them and understand what stage are they at. Are they at the stage of I'm not sure, mobile scares me, I don't want to put a
Let
capital behind
let's
this?
pre let's pretend it's the first stage, they have done nothing.
Yeah,
Because look, I think there's dealers out there that don't want technicians driving vans around doing
Yeah.
whatever, right? Like, how do you know where this driver is? How do you know what they're doing? I think that's overblown. I don't believe that argument at all, but there are some dealers that have not done step 1. What would you say to them,
yeah.
Troy?
So I think the first thing you do is, like, dealers operate in 30-day cycles. So let's look at a pro forma and let's sit down and pencil it with your numbers and see what it's going to take for this van to be profitable. Obviously, it's important that the principal and the GM, the service manager, are behind this. So my first step is leadership absolutely has
For
to get
sure.
behind this, and you have to treat it like a different department. You have variable, you have the business office, you have F&I, you have fixed, and then mobile kind of sits over here, right? So
Yeah.
you
Yes.
have to, one, create it like its own department. Let's create its own P&L. It's a relatively small community still, and kudos and compliments to Ed Roberts and his team are starting to create like 20 groups where GMs can come in and educate, and that's I spend a lot less time selling, and it's getting on these platforms like your show and educate and consult and share 11 years of best practices and show them where to find technicians. And it reminds me of a story down in Florida where there's a lot of swimming pools. They went after and hired swimming pool technicians that
Yeah.
are have a
Yeah.
skill set, can clean a pool, but also are great with customers. So
Yeah.
that's an area that some dealers may never have thought of. And if we can share those of how to find the right tech with the right skill and bring them in, that's what I think dealers know why they should do mobile. They just don't know how. And if we
Yeah.
can show them the
Mm.
how and sit down and say, here's how mobile can work.
Yeah. Well, so let's say you want to start, you've got the van, you've got a technician. What are some of those starting services as you go out for those first interactions you should deliver as part of that remote service?
Yeah. Some of my dealers, they'll look at the easy ones first. And when I say easy, they'll look at, should we go out and do a recall? Can we go tackle some of that recall work? Can we go start in fleet? And then I've got some customers that say, you know what, we're really going to jump all in on the customer side. I've got some customers that are trying to educate their consumer about mobile, so they'll even sell it in F&I, right? Early.
Mm.
Like, hey, we have a mobile program, and let's take you through when we get into F&I and bundle it up into a package to, oh, really? You'll come to my house? And we call it driveway envy, right? You show up to their
Huh.
house and now you're doing a mobile service. Well, guess what? That neighbor next door will all of a sudden say, "Hey, where'd you buy your car? These guys come to
So
you?"
so
So
Troy, are you saying that you're seeing some dealerships and groups selling remote service as a package, like prepaid? How does that work? Walk me through that.
yeah, so I've got a couple early dealerships that are saying, "Hey, I treated this like one. I need to help get the message out." And one of the messages being is if it's a prepaid maintenance, maybe it's prepaid maintenance plus mobile, and maybe we have a silver, gold, and platinum package. And so some of them have offered it in that way. Some of them
Uh-huh.
haven't even taken an approach of I'm going to mark it up, but some will look back at fixed and say, I'm 5 weeks out on an appointment. I need
Yeah.
to free up those bays for the bigger jobs. Let me go take these small jobs and go do it mobily, and that's where some of my customers live today.
Hmm.
Yeah, I get nervous when you talk about that because I don't want F&I to overpromise what you can do in remote service, right?
Yeah.
Is that a risk? Is that potentially something that could
Well, with
create a
our
problem?
yeah, with our software, we build everything off of opcode, so there's jobs that a customer can't do
Okay.
mobile. Um, when we did get with some customers, they actually did not want to add headcount to a BDC. So they wanted a customer to kind of self navigate. So think about everything we do outside of automotive is on this, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you don't talk to anybody. You just get on there and order and things show up and tell my
Yeah.
kids talk to me. But with that all being said, that's where I see the customer's appetite of like from a convenience standpoint. Now, there'll be jobs that we'll have to redirect the customer back to the dealership. We have a electronic MPI into our technology too. So when we do go out and do a walk around, we're looking at things within the car. And let's say they are below 430 seconds on tires. Well, let's reroute them back to the dealership and schedule an appointment. So that's another easy add one. And then the other piece of this too is also think of variable if we are actively trying to find cars to acquire, not only is it the car that you're working on, but they more than likely have a second car in the driveway.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's good.
So,
Yeah.
let's tap into an acquisition play too.
How do you
And
do that? What does that
well,
look like?
there's different tools you can use. I need, Brian Kramer with AccuTrade and a couple others that are out there. You can tie that in. Some of already are using it. Now just put it in the technician's hand. A little bit of training from the technician, but the
Yeah.
technology has come so far along that it's very easy. And if they're already doing an MPI, you're not adding a lot of time to that process. But if
Yeah.
that's your strategy and you want to build that in to acquire cars, then it's a good strategy to have.
A lot of different ways you could potentially go. As we wrap today, what are a few problems or attempts that dealers will make that causes their remote service to fail? Like, what are some pitfalls dealers should look to avoid this September of 2025?
Yeah, great question. I think not separating it, not putting leadership in charge, not hiring someone and dedicating that person. Because here's what's going
Mm.
to happen: you strap a fixed ops director or a service manager, they have a full time schedule and agenda, and it's
Yeah.
something new they can't dedicate. They'll do well. We got one appointment on this today or two. You know what? So and so called in sick. Let's pull this guy off the van and put. So all those little nuances happen. So I think what needs to take place is a strategy. We've got to sit down and lay out a blueprint. What is your commitment? What's your strategy to really drive mobile? And we've got some huge success stories from a even a Stellantis location in Little San Marcos, Texas, where they went after mobile and did 95 ROs the first month, and
Wow.
did 23,000 a rev on the van and 16 gross. And those are things, those are real numbers, not from me. It's real numbers from a dealership that launched mobile, and share those with other customers.
A ton of opportunity as it sits in
Mhm.
fixed ops and mobile delivery. And it's interesting too, maybe just we've only got a couple seconds left, but that customer experience, right? It seems to me if you're doing that, like I love the idea of used car acquisition. I love the idea of recalls and basic services and even selling it in F&I if you can figure out how to do that right. Like focusing on that customer experience at their home, that gives
Yeah,
us a whole new world, right?
quite
Yeah,
literally meeting them where they're at.
yeah, and that's said a lot, right? That slogan is said quite often, and I will just tell you that customers are less guarded at home and more
Mhm.
Yeah.
open. They're on their home turf. They're in the comfort of their house or their work, and a technician comes and says, "Hey, you've got a dirty cabin filter, or you got bad wipers." Those are easy add-ons that may have been declined at the dealership, but now that
Yeah.
they're at home, those are we're finding those additional add-ons are happening.
Mhm.
Troy Blackwell, EVP, Automotive Business Development. Spiffy, thanks for joining the show today and sharing your perspectives on all things remote delivery. I want to know more about used car acquisitions in remote service. I think that is just a cool,
It's a cool
bolt on
angle.
as well. Troy, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thanks,
Troy.
guys.